The sun rises over Port Charles on Monday, June 29, 2026, casting long, tense shadows across the harbor, the corridors of General Hospital, and the sprawling estates of Spoon Island. The town is on the precipice of a dramatic summer shift, with layers of deception, hidden illnesses, and familial fractures threatening to rupture old alliances. For the residents caught in the web of recent events, the morning brings no peace, only a mounting pressure to protect the people they love or, in some cases, to ensure that their deepest secrets remain buried beneath the surface. At the hospital, the sterile hum of monitors and the soft squeak of soft-soled shoes on linoleum floors form the backdrop for an emotional reckoning between generations. Emma Scorpio Drake stands outside her grandmother's room, taking a deep, steadying breath before pushing the door open. Inside, Anna Devane sits propped up in her hospital bed, the deceptively domestic image of her knitting a sharp contrast to the dangerous double life she has led for decades. Emma, who has inherited both the Scorpio resolve and a fierce intuition, is not there for polite pleasantries. She is seeking absolute clarity. The recent chaos surrounding the WSB, missing files, and the mysterious whispers echoing through the intelligence community have left Emma deeply unsettled, and she knows that Anna is the gatekeeper to the truth. As Emma pulls up a chair, her questions are direct, cutting through the usual protective layers Anna uses to shield her family. Anna looks at her granddaughter, seeing so much of herself and Robin in the young woman's determined eyes. The conversation quickly shifts from a medical check-in to a high-stakes debrief, as Emma demands to know the full story behind the recent threats and what Anna's next move will be now that she is back on the canvas. Anna tries to navigate the thin line between transparency and protection, knowing that giving Emma too much information could put a target on her back, yet recognizing that lying to her will only drive a wedge between them. Meanwhile, a few floors away or perhaps across town in a quiet corner of Metro Court, Felicia Scorpio finds herself grappling with her own deep-seated doubts. Felicia has known Anna long enough to read between the lines of any official report or reassuring smile. When confronted with the latest updates regarding Anna's condition and the official explanation of recent events, Felicia's maternal and investigative instincts flare. She is profoundly skeptical. To Felicia, the pieces of the puzzle do not fit together naturally, instead, they feel forced, as if a larger, more perilous picture is being intentionally obscured. She walks through the scenarios in her mind, questioning the motives of those currently pulling the strings in Port Charles, particularly with the looming threat of shadowy figures like Jen Sidwell and the unstable movements of the Cassadine bloc. Felicia's skepticism isn't just passive doubt, it is a call to action, a quiet vow that she will dig deeper into the anomalies surrounding Anna's return and the true nature of the risk her family is facing, even if it means crossing lines that the authorities have strictly drawn. In another part of Port Charles, the burden of parental legacy and current crises brings Molly Lansing Davis to a moment of raw vulnerability. Sitting in a quiet space, away from the demanding pressures of her legal career and the ongoing friction within her family, Molly opens up about her parents. The complex, often volatile history of Alexis Davis and Rick Lansing has left an indelible mark on Molly's psyche. She reflects on the chaotic environment of her upbringing, the constant tug-of-war between justice and survival that defined her mother's life, and the dark, manipulative streaks associated with her father. Molly voices the deep anxieties that come with being the child of two such formidable, deeply flawed individuals. She analyzes how their past mistakes, their legal battles, and their personal entanglements have shaped her own expectations of relationships, her rigid adherence to the law, and the heavy mantle of responsibility she constantly carries. This emotional outpouring highlights the generational trauma that defines so many in Port Charles, serving as a reminder that even the most successful and put-together residents are often running away from the ghosts of their family tree. The theme of parental anxiety takes a more urgent, immediate form on the docks, where Alexis Davis seeks out Sonny Corinthos for a private, highly confidential conversation. Alexis is visibly frayed, her usual professional composure eroded by a terrifying discovery involving her grandson, Danny Morgan. Standing near the dark water, Alexis confides in Sonny about Danny's recent, reckless actions, specifically, his desperate attempt to break into the highly secured WSB office. Alexis explains that Danny, driven by a fierce, youthful loyalty and a misguided desire to clear his father's name, has put himself directly in the crosshairs of a federal agency that does not hesitate to eliminate liabilities. She is terrified that the boy is walking into a trap he cannot survive. Sonny listens, his jaw tight, his instincts as a mob boss and a father instantly kicking into overdrive. The gravity of the situation is immense. If the WSB catches wind of Danny's infiltration, the consequences will be catastrophic. Sonny's response is swift and stern, warning Alexis that they must keep Danny entirely in the dark about their intervention, and that he will handle the fallout before the teenagers of Port Charles get themselves killed. The shared history between Sonny and Alexis adds a layer of heavy solemnity to the exchange, as they unite once again to protect the next generation from the violence that has always surrounded their lives. While family structures splinter and reform in the light of day, the darkest corners of Windmere harbor a lethal conspiracy. Deep within the shadows of Spoon Island, Cassius Faison briefs Cullum on the latest phase of their hidden agenda. Cassius, driven by a complex mix of desperation and a twisted sense of familial duty, believes he is taking the necessary steps to save his sister Britt Westbourne, whose health is rapidly declining due to her worsening Huntington's symptoms. Cassius reveals that he has successfully broken into the Windmere safe and secured what he believes to be the life-saving medication Britt desperately needs while she is on the run with young Rocco. However, Cassius remains entirely unaware of the trap that has been laid for him. Cullum listens to the brief with a calculating, icy detachment, playing the part of an ally while keeping his own deadly secret. Cullum has already compromised the safe, replacing the genuine medication with a highly toxic, poison substitute. As Cassius outlines his plan to disappear and deliver the vials to Britt, Cullum watches him with the quiet satisfaction of a predator who has successfully routed his prey into a dead end. If Cassius succeeds in delivering these poisoned vials, the medicine meant to preserve Britt's life will instead become the very instrument of her destruction, bringing the dark legacy of the Faison bloodline to a horrifying, imminent climax. The tension in Port Charles deepens as the afternoon sun begins to fade, casting a heavy, golden hue over the city while several residents find themselves standing at critical turning points. The deceptive calm of the morning has completely vanished, replaced by a tangible sense of urgency as hidden agendas begin to collide and long-buried truths threaten to tear apart the fragile peace that families have worked so hard to maintain. At the penthouse, Jason Morgan stands by the window, his gaze fixed on the bustling harbor below. The weight of his recent choices presses heavily on his shoulders, particularly regarding his son, Danny. Jason knows that Danny's reckless behavior is a direct reflection of his own turbulent past, a legacy of danger and defiance that he never wanted to pass down to the next generation. The realization that Danny put himself in extreme peril by targeting a secure facility shakes Jason to his core, forcing him to re-evaluate his distant approach to parenting. He understands that simply watching from afar is no longer enough to keep his son safe from the predatory elements of Port Charles or the overreaching grasp of federal agencies. Turning back into the room, Jason begins to formulate a quiet strategy, one that involves reinforcing security around Danny without drawing the boy's suspicion or anger, knowing that a heavy-handed approach would only push the rebellious teenager further into danger. Across town at the Metro Court, Carly Spencer is dealing with her own storm of parental anxiety. Having caught wind of the whispers surrounding the younger generation's latest missteps, Carly feels a familiar, fiercely protective instinct taking over. She paces her office, her mind racing through the potential fallout for both Danny and her own family members who always seem to get drawn into the orbit of Corinthos-related chaos. Carly is acutely aware that the lines between the corporate world and the underworld are blurring faster than ever this summer, and she is determined to act as a shield for those she loves. She picks up her phone, making a series of discreet calls to gather intelligence, refusing to sit idly by while the foundation she has built is threatened by the reckless choices of impulsive teenagers and the looming shadows of old enemies. Meanwhile, the atmosphere inside the safe house where Britt Westbourne and young Rocco are hiding grows increasingly tense. Britt, fighting a daily, exhausting battle against the physical toll of her condition, tries to maintain a brave face for the boy, but the isolation is beginning to wear on them both. Rocco, perceptive beyond his years, senses the underlying fear that dominates their current existence, asking questions that Britt struggles to answer without revealing the full, terrifying scope of their situation. She looks at the dwindling supply of her medication, praying that Cassius will arrive soon with the relief he promised. She remains tragically oblivious to the reality that the very man she is relying on for survival is being manipulated, and that the incoming lifeline is actually a countdown to a fatal mistake. Back on Spoon Island, the silence of the Windmere estate is broken by the arrival of a surprise visitor, throwing Cullum's carefully laid plans into temporary disarray. He is forced to mask his murderous satisfaction behind a facade of aristocratic charm, quickly closing the hidden compartments and smooth-talking his way out of suspicion. The encounter forces Cullum to realize that the window of opportunity to execute his trap without detection is closing rapidly. He needs Cassius to leave Port Charles and deliver the poisoned vials immediately, before anyone else starts asking questions about the anomalies in the Cassadine files or the security breaches in the main house. The psychological chess match intensifies as Cullum subtly manipulates Cassius into accelerating his departure, playing on his desperation to save Britt before it is too late. As evening settles over the city, the various factions find themselves on an inevitable collision course. Sonny's enforcers quietly position themselves around the perimeters of the teenager's usual hangouts, acting on the strict orders given during his meeting with Alexis. The police department, led by a vigilant Jordan Ashford, begins to notice the shifting patterns of movement. Among the city's major players, sensing that a major event is brewing just beneath the surface of the standard daily blotter. The stage is completely set for a dramatic confrontation, with lives hanging in the balance as the clock ticks down toward a chaotic night that will redefine alliances, expose deadly betrays, and leave the residents of Port Charles reeling from the fallout of their collective secrets. As the evening thickens into a heavy, dark night over Port Charles, the intricate webs of deception begin to tighten around their targets, ensuring that the fallout from this day will ripple through the town for weeks to come. The quiet hum of the city beltway handles the fleeting traffic of commuters unaware of the storm brewing in the high society circles and underworld hubs of the local landscape. At the PCPD, Jordan Ashford reviews the latest security logs from the waterfront, her instinct telling her that the unusual shift in local enforcement patterns is a precursor to something catastrophic. She tracks the recent activity surrounding Spoon Island, noting that the typical electronic signatures coming from the Windmere estate have fluctuated significantly over the last 48 hours. Jordan knows that when the Cassadine or Phazon empires go quiet, it usually means the fuse has already been lit. She flags the anomalies for a deeper investigation, completely unaware that the countdown has already bypassed the local authorities and reached a critical state. Out in the isolated, makeshift safe house, the atmosphere is suffocatingly dense. Britt Westbourne sits by the dim light of a single lamp, her hand trembling slightly as she comforts young Rocco, who has finally drifted into an uneasy sleep. Every ache in her joints and every involuntary twitch of her muscles serves as a terrifying reminder that her time is running out. She looks at the front door, waiting for the knock that will signal her brother Cassius's return. When the knock finally comes, it is soft and hurried. Britt rushes to unbolt the door, revealing Cassius, breathless and pale, holding a secure medical case. The relief that washes over Britt is immediate, but it is a tragic illusion. Cassius presents the stolen vials, explaining how he breached the Windmere safe to secure what he believes is her salvation. Neither of them suspects that Cullum's intervention has transformed this act of brotherly devotion into a fatal trap. As Britt prepares the first dose, the literal poison is poised to enter her system, threatening to bring a swift, violent end to her time on the run. Simultaneously, the convergence of secrets reaches a boiling point back at the Metro Court, where Carly Spencer's discreet inquiries begin to cross paths with Nina Reeves's ongoing maneuvers. The two women, historically locked in a bitter rivalry, are inadvertently moving toward the same explosive revelations regarding their children and their shared history with the Corinthos organization. Carly, having pieced together the fragments of the teenager's reckless WSB infiltration plan, realizes that the danger is much closer than she originally anticipated. The realization forces a cold dread into her chest, knowing that if Sonny or the federal agents strike first, the collateral damage will destroy the fragile peace she has fought to maintain for her family. As the midnight hour approaches, the residents of Port Charles find themselves entirely at the mercy of their own choices. Sonny's quiet deployment of resources across the docks establishes a perimeter designed to intercept any further reckless movements from Danny or his peers, setting up a defensive wall that could easily double as an offensive trap if Jen Sidwell makes his final move. The generational trauma, the corporate warfare, and the lethal medical conspiracies have all aligned perfectly under the cover of darkness. When the sun rises on the next day, the landscape of Port Charles will be irrevocably altered, leaving lives shattered, alliances permanently broken, and a trail of secrets that no one can fully run away from anymore.